we're actually seeing more, at least of what we're developing here at the agency, Gunderson Direct. We're actually seeing more digital printing, and for two reasons. One, the volumes may have come down, the targeting has increased, which is good. So we're getting a better targeted individual, and we're sending less mail, so it's a little bit more relevant to that audience. And two, the capabilities are just there now. Finally, I can do full variable digital color printing at scale, 100,000, 500,000, a million pieces of mail, whether it's a postcard, whether it's a letter, whether it's inline or not. And I can develop it all without plates. Essentially, a large, very large laser printer is developing all of that print at scale, which is really exciting.
You are listening to Power Marketing with Kevin Lee. Kevin and his agency Did It have helped thousands of businesses win through superior marketing, as have his books, articles, speaking engagements, and the E-Marketing Association Power Marketing podcasts. Here's Kevin.
Direct mail has gone a lot more digital, and that's why I'm super happy to be chatting with Mike Gunderson today. I also run a nonprofit, Giving Forward, and I own a brand, Truth Nutrition, where I run all kinds of experiments that Did It clients probably would not be comfortable with me running on their brands. So it's nice to have my own brand to experiment with. So let's start off. Mike, you've been in direct mail a lot longer than I have. And so what is probably new to me from about 5 years ago about variable digital printing, you probably watched the evolution from lithographic to variable digital, and where the price points were, where all of a sudden, a run of a certain size suddenly made sense to do digital, right, or variable digital, and that opened up a whole lot of opportunity for hyper personalization of mail, and that was what was super exciting about direct mail to me, is like the same kind of dynamic creative optimization that I'm used to on the web, right, was now coming off of paper, right?
Yeah.
So I'd love for you to sort of provide that historical context, because I'm sure that when you first got into direct mail, it was like lithographic and then inkjet, right? And that's how you created your differentiation, right? So it's different now.
Yeah, I mean, I say first off, the printing process is just amazing. I mean, to actually see it in action is incredible. I started working for a credit card company back in the late 1990s and into the 2000s for Providian Financial, at the time one of the largest credit card issuers in the world, and that's where I first really started, even thinking about direct mail. I had no idea that was going to be my career path. When I came out of art school, I wanted to, design CD covers. Even that's dating me, right? And so the opportunity to go in and just design letter packages with applications and BREs was very odd. But I'll tell you, I took to it really, really quickly. I loved it. I love the process. I love the analytics. I love anything that's measured. And so that was a really cool opportunity. But everything at the time, like you said, at that time was direct mail. And even at that time was kind of at the teetering point for digital. So mail was very effective. It was at scale, more than any other direct marketing tactic. And so we did a lot of mail. And yes, offset at the time, had its limits when it came to personalization. We still had letter shops, obviously, and laser variable copy, but for the most part, it was all offset. We would offset the envelope, offset the letter, offset the inserts, the drop note, the BRE. And today, I mean, almost 22 years later, we're actually seeing more, at least of what we're developing here at the agency, Gunderson Direct. We're actually seeing more digital printing, and for two reasons. One, the volumes may have come down, the targeting has increased, which is good. So we're getting a better targeted individual, and we're sending less mail, so it's a little bit more relevant to that audience. And two, the capabilities are just there now. Finally, I can do full variable digital color printing at scale, 100,000, 500,000, a million pieces of mail, whether it's a postcard, whether it's a letter, whether it's inline or not. And I can develop it all without plates. Essentially, a large, very large laser printer is developing all of that print at scale, which is really exciting. And to what you mentioned, just amazing capabilities. I mean, I can have an individual image, a map image, a product image. I can have individual copy blocks. I can have different colors for different brand affinity partnerships. So it's just a really, really great innovation that's finally here, and priced to mail essentially.
So I'd love to get your thoughts on sort of segments versus the one-to-one personalization of mail, right? So certainly if you know a lot about certain segments of, let's think about it as if it was a catalog, but it could be digital website as well, direct to consumer. There may be certain people who like certain products in a multi-product catalog. And so you could just group those people together and all show them the leather jacket on that postcard, or change the front of the magalog or catalog to be the leather jacket version, right? Or you could go down to the individual level and say, well, we did a dump out of the content management system, and we actually know these are like the colors of leather jackets that they like. So we're going to actually go ahead and put a brown one on there instead of the black one, even though black is the most popular color, right? And so when you strategize with folks who have maybe really robust, rich data sets, and you're thinking about, do we do one-to-one level personalization, or do we do sort of segment level personalization? How do you work through that strategy?
Well, I think it's interesting. I mean, so what we do is we mainly work with fintech, financial, insurance type companies for acquisition direct mail. We don't do as much in retail, although we do some. And so what I'll do is I'll kind of talk to it from my perspective of getting individual one-to-one data. So a good example would be a credit rating, or even a retargeting direct mail package. So I know certain information about this customer, or they're a customer of my clients already, and we're utilizing that data to drive the offer to ensure that we are going to be able to underwrite that customer, right? We're going to give them an offer of credit. We know it's going to be, say $5,000 at XYZ response rate. And what we don't want to have happen is have that customer come in, apply for the loan, run a credit check, and then get kicked out. That's just a bad user and brand experience, right?
Yeah,
so
for everybody.
Exactly. So the idea is like, let's pre-qualify them, right? Or pre-approve them even. And then let's make sure we're utilizing that data to drive that offer, to drive that copy, to ensure that that customer knows that the product and service that they're about to apply for, that they're going to get, and the terms are going to be good, and they're going to accept it, and we're going to get a full conversion out of it. So when we do one-to-one direct mail variable copy, it's typically around rate. It could be things like their address, their home value, perhaps. We can speak to that inside the copy. We can, what we do from an image perspective sometimes is we'll throw a variable map to drive somebody to, say, maybe a local branch, like a local Wells Fargo branch, for instance, or something like that, just to make the call to action easier to drive those customers to take action in order to take advantage of those products and services. And that's where we see really, really great things. And I will say, if you get too one-to-one and you're too granular with that, you could win. The problem is it's really hard to test inside of that environment. You can't do mass testing. And the mailers that we do are anywhere between 150 to 5 million pieces of mail per month, right? And so doing individual is great, but to actually then measure the effectiveness of that creative, of that messaging is really difficult at that point.
Yeah. I mean, when I got into the idea of variable digital and I wanted to do a little bit of innovation, I probably shouldn't have invented it myself, but I decided to, build a system which was a lightweight CRM that put a custom QR code on every piece of mail, mainly in a B2B context, right? Because I wanted to be able to create Glengarry leads, even if the person abandons the landing page, right? But you also wanted to be able to pre-populate the landing page with the person's information, right? Which was super fun for a marketing nerd like me. So, it ends up, I think that does probably exist in a few places, but not quite exactly the same way I deployed it. But I'd love for you to talk about QR codes and how they sort of were rescued from the dead during the pandemic when people needed menus.
That's the funniest way to put it. So we were the very first people that brought a QR code onto a direct mailer for Wells Fargo. And at the time, this was, I think, 2006 or 8-ish. At the time, it was so innovative. They're like, oh my God, a brand new call to action. Before that, it was BREs, business reply envelopes, business reply cards, definitely a URL, and obviously phone number. And of course, at that point, fax machines are still all the rage, right? So everybody was doing this. So we said, hey, let's try this QR code. Let's do this thing. And it worked really well. And we were all very excited about it. And you started seeing a bunch of QR codes. And in fact, the USPS at the time did a postage promotion around it to encourage more mailers to use QR codes. But you probably saw this too, Kevin, but unless you were from another country, QR codes just kind of laid flat. And there was two reasons that they laid flat, in my opinion. One is that I would say that the main reason is there wasn't huge adoption because the only places you might see them were on a direct mail piece, right? So it wasn't like they were being utilized in DRTV and they weren't being utilized in out of home. And so what happened was consumers just weren't used to it. The second thing, the biggest thing I think, is that Apple did not make that inherent to the camera until like 2012 or 13, right? And so you had to download an app in order to even take advantage of a QR code. Well, there's so much friction there that no consumer is going to take advantage of that. It was only up until about 6 years ago that Apple finally built that to be built into the camera directly. So all you had to do is point your phone and then it would read the QR code. So fast forward past the pandemic, we all thought they were dead too. Like, no one's doing QR codes. But then what happened? We have touchless tech. Nobody wants to touch anything. Nobody wants to get sick. Nobody wants their germs on anything, or vice versa, right? And then we started seeing those QR codes on menus. I mean, to order food, to pay your bill. I don't know about you, but when I get that big QR code, I think at Chili's, where all you have to do is scan the QR code to pay your bill, to me, one of the best innovations ever made. I mean, I just love it. I love interacting with wait staff during the meal, but when I'm ready to go, I'm ready to go. I don't want to have to wait, right? So that's a huge innovation, and it just got piled on. Everybody was using QR codes for almost everything. Well, this was great for us, the direct marketer, because now all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, even my grandma knows how to use a QR code, right? I mean, if she can open up her phone and scan the menu and order something, then this is really great. So we started implementing QR codes back onto our direct mail packages. And then some of the major mailers, the American Expresses out there, the Chase, those guys started implementing QR codes on all their direct mail as well, to where you'd be hard pressed to find any direct mail that doesn't have a QR code. And then going back to what you said about the one-to-one attribution, brilliant. I mean, personalized QR codes are brilliant because not only can they pre-fill the population on a landing page, like you mentioned, or pre-fill a CRM, once that information comes in, but on the back end for the marketer, I can at least I can go back to my database. I can do it manually. I can say, this person scanned my QR code, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, go to them, look up the record, send the record to my sales team, send it to Salesforce. And now I can do a retargeting ad with that. I can pick up the phone and call that customer. I can send an email. And so, personalized QR codes are really, really brilliant at this point when being used within your direct marketing approach.
Yeah, the other really fun thing about it is the scan of the QR code is a leading indicator. Like, some people will still abandon the landing page. And that allows you to have a read on your creative, which is working A or B or A, B, or C, or whatever your split test is, before you have to wait for the full funnel sales cycle to occur, right? Yeah. So you get a leading indicator to know, well, at least people thought enough of the offer to click on it. But I do have a really funny story that you made me think of regarding QR codes, because I was in your camp that I thought, like, oh, now even grandmothers know how to use QR codes. So I decided to do a street team fundraising event in partnership with my nonprofit Giving Forward and the New York Blood Center. And we decided to do a street team in New York just as an experiment. We have these QR codes on posters and on handouts, postcard size handouts. And as people are going by, we're doing the intercepts, and we're telling them, listen, if you scan this, you enter for a chance to win sweepsforacause.org. Plus, if you decide you want to donate blood, it's National Blood Donor Day. And a whole bunch of people are like, I don't know how to use QR codes. And of course, the marketing mad scientist in me was like, I got to get to the bottom of this. Like, how did they make it through the pandemic? So I had to ask them. I said, well, didn't you use one in the restaurant, for the last couple of years? And they were like, oh, no, there was a designated QR code scanner at the table, which was usually a young person. And then they would hand their phone around to the rest of the table. And I had to start laughing, because that's like the most germy way to do it, right? was to have one person then pass the same phone around. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's like the opposite of touchless. That's like hyper touch, right? Because at least menus could be wiped down. The idea of the same phone making its way around the table, just in my mind, visualizing that was hysterically funny. But I'd love for you to get into, you invented something else using QR codes that I'd love to have you take people through your sort of epiphany of, here's something I think we can do with QR codes.
That's right. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. So one thing we noticed here at the agency is we would do pre-mailers, right, for like sales events. So take the Gap, for example, right? They have a Black Friday sale, or maybe they have a friends and family sale. And those sales are typically starting like on the 1st of the month and going through the 15th of the month. And what they do is they send you emails if you're a customer, obviously. If you're a prospect, they may send you a direct mail piece, maybe a postcard. And that postcard will basically say, hey, our friends and family event is happening in 2 weeks from now. Use this postcard or take down this promo code and utilize this next time you go shopping on, November 1st through the 15th. Well, the issue is that that's really handy if you end up putting it in your purse and you remember it later. Maybe you pin it to your post board and maybe you can refer to it at some other point. And what I love is when people actually just take a picture of that direct mailer with their phone in the hopes that they're going to remember that sale. And so what our QR code does is really brilliant, actually. So that postcard comes in the mail. That sells maybe a few days in the future. And all it says is there's a little call to action that says, hey, scan this QR code and we'll remind you when the sale starts. So you get the initial touch, that awareness that the sale is happening, that the friends and family sale is happening. That's very good. And then typically you would hopefully try to remember, right? But now you can just scan the QR code. You can browse fashions instantly, right? You can set a reminder. So all you do is put in your mobile phone number, put it in your email, or you can add it directly to your calendar, and you'll get a reminder the day before that sale starts. So you can plan your day, the day of that sale, which is fantastic. So you could be walking around, just dropping off the kids. You'll get that reminder that says, hey, the Gap Friends and Family sale is starting today. Click here to start shopping, right? And then you'll also get one final reminder one day before that sale ends. So maybe you missed your opportunity. Maybe you even though you got those reminders, you didn't take action. You'll get one more reminder one day before the end of that sale and say, hey, look, we got one more day left of 20% off friends and family. Click here to get to start shopping. And it's been really, really powerful. So we've done a couple of pilots with both the Gap and Banana Republic. Both have been huge successes for their campaigns. And we're really looking to not only build this out for marketers, so being able to have them not only put it on direct mail pieces, but maybe they want to put it on transit ads, right? Who's got time to sit there and go through anything on a transit ad as they're trying to run for their train? All those transit ads are inside the corridor. Or maybe another good use case would be, maybe there's a summer movie happening, but they're already promoting those posters right now. If you go to the movie theater right now, you're seeing the movie poster for summer 2024. Well, this is another great opportunity. Scan the QR code and we'll send you a reminder when this movie premieres, right? So you see it. All those marketing dollars are now not going to waste by you forgetting about those events. Now you actually get those reminders even maybe months later after you initially saw that impression. So we're excited about that. And then we also have a spinoff for that product called Vote Reminder, which is the exact same product, but essentially, if you get that direct mailer or you see that TV ad for the candidate that you want to vote for, you can just say, hey, scan the QR code. We'll remind you to vote for Marie Smith on election day. Just put in your phone number, put in your email, or add it to your calendar. So we're really seeing some really great traction. We're starting to work with some very large brands with the product, and we're excited to see if we can help that direct mail and really any direct marketing, really enhancing the call to action and response by utilizing post reminder.
Yeah, that's really cool. We also ended up using the same invention I invented for direct mail, the QR code side, for outdoor. And what was fascinating about that is depending on where you're buying your outdoor and whether you're buying it programmatically, sometimes they'll let you do a different QR code on each placement, right? Or at least group of placements. And so you can know whether or not your Grand Central station or Penn Station deployment is a better deployment for you from a response basis, which was, really challenging to do before. So that's really cool. But from a mail perspective, part of what I really like about your solution is that one of the big variables in direct mail that's still pretty iffy is depending on which postal rate you're mailing, knowing exactly when it's going to get to the home. There's still a fair amount of variability in there, right? So
Right.
if you mail it and it gets there too late, the person's pissed because the sale started yesterday,
Yep.
right? Or 2 days ago. They don't want that. So you want it to get there early. But the other thing is if it gets there early, sometimes the people will show up at the store thinking like, okay, I know jeans are 30% off, and they're like, oh no, that doesn't start till Sunday.
Exactly.
Right? So this
Yeah.
this sort of solves that difficulty in predicting when direct mail is actually going to arrive. So it'll be fascinating to see how adoption rates are for a sort of QR code engagement, across the board. Certainly, I think the consumer is engaging in QR codes generally. Although, like I said, I found some segments of the population that are apparently still phobic of their QR code.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. We have seen a larger adoption and scan rate in QR codes just in our mail, but it's still not 100%. So if there's other call to actions on that mailer, they'll go, and this probably as well as I do. If it's a vanity URL, a single word vanity URL. So let's just say Banana Republic May 2024 sell.com. Let's say that's the vanity URL. There's a decent likelihood that they might type that in. If it's a gap.com/February sell, there's a likelihood that they might, type that in. If it's just gap.com, a lot easier, they'll likely type that in. But as you probably know, most people go right to Google, gap sale, hit return, and now all of a sudden we've lost all attribution. So where that QR code is being more prominent, where it's more useful, we're taking somebody offline to online. And if it's a very nice user experience on the phone, obviously is important, then we're going to get that conversion because they're basically saying, hey, scan this QR code on the phone that you already have in your hand to make that transaction. That's a low barrier of entry. And so that is a really useful case for QR codes, but attribution is key. And so that's why we love them, is because we typically don't get response data sometimes from our clients. We'll get conversion data from them, like how many sales did we drive? But really, as you may know, as an agency, we're just not in control of the sales funnel. We're in control of the marketing funnel. Like we can drive the leads, but we can't necessarily convert the sales. Your sales team can, your website landing page can, all these things can. So we have no real insight. But if we can, at least from our clients, say, look, we've driven 200 leads today to your website, and you've only converted 30 of them. This is your problem, not our problem. Let's see if we can optimize that experience for the customer and see if we can drive more conversion. So it's super key in order for that to happen. I was going to say one thing about your out-of-home geolocation is what's great about QR codes, and you probably know this, is you can typically drill down to a fairly decent location. So if you are doing a nationwide campaign and you're using a QR code, say on DRTV, you can at least see, without having a different QR code for each market, you can see where those scans are coming from. And then from that, you can triangulate where most of those responses are coming from a geo location on a national campaign.
Yeah. What's interesting is when I noticed the increase in percentage of direct mail pieces that would show up in my home or business, but mostly home with QR codes attached, I would always deconstruct them to see like what 101 level mistakes were made. And there were a lot of them, right?
Yeah.
One of the ones that was pretty common was failure to use any dynamic variable at all that converts into your UTM. Right? Because you want to be able to have it show up in the analytics on the website and say, well, this came from direct mail and it came from this particular creative. And so we were getting just stuff that was direct navigation straight to a single URL that wasn't even specific to direct mail. So they know, like, clearly in that case, the cubicles of the direct mail people and the cubicles of the digital people were like too far away from each other. They didn't speak each other's language, right? And so they didn't bother to collaborate on that. The other thing that people often would do is they would make the URLs very, very long and not use a shortener, right? And so you'd end up with a QR code that is so dense but
Yeah.
it's much more difficult for the camera to get a fix on it and actually trigger it and turn it into a URL.
Plus,
So
it's
it
super
becomes a bad
unattractive.
user experience.
Yeah, and it's super unattractive. I
Yeah.
mean, if you do a bit.ly and you do a bit.ly URL and you reduce it down to a bit.ly plus a // number, usually is what it is.
Yeah.
It's kind of an elegant looking QR code. I mean, it's not too many
It's
bits of
clean.
information. Yeah, but once you put and to your point, you can have a string of 500 characters and it'll still be that really elegant QR code. But if you're dumping that 500 characters into a single QR code, it's awful. And the smaller that QR code, the more impossible it is, especially if you're doing digital printing and you're not on the best digital printing press there is. All that bleeding, depending on your paper, is just going to start it's like a sponge, right? It's just going to start to come together like an old 30-year-old tattoo, and you're not going to be able to read it anyway, right?
So what are some other fun advances as a result of either variable digital printing or just direct mail in general that you think people should be aware of that perhaps are still thinking about direct mail the same way they did 15 years ago?
Well, I still think that one of the biggest advances is still some of the data sets that we're able to compile. So we do a lot of modeling here at the agency. We do a lot of customer profile modeling. We do intent modeling. So we're able to take our customer, just like a lookalike model for Facebook or anything else. We're able to do that on the address-based level, which is a very, very accurate level of data. And then from that address level of data, not only are we able to, of course, send mail that's relevant to that customer, and hopefully they're interested or in the market for the products and services that we're selling, but then we can then append that address-based data, and we can just do display ads within household while the direct mail is being sent. We can do emails, obviously, as you know, and then the informed delivery is just, I think, is an underrated piece of technology that the USPS has developed. I love it. I look at it every day religiously, not because I'm a direct mail guy, and it's truly informed. I look at it, I get excited about what's coming in my mailbox. And it's also a record. It's a digital record. In case that thing's not in my mailbox, there's a problem, right? And so I have a visual record of knowing that maybe somebody tampered with my mail, or maybe for some reason it got delivered to a different address. And so that innovation from a consumer perspective is awesome. From a marketer innovation perspective for the USPS, being able to do informed delivery ads tied to your campaigns allows you to sort to the top of that digest, which is really exciting for marketers. Allows you to have an image, really two images. You have a main image and a ride-along image. Those are really great. They're marketing, it's essentially a free targeted digital marketing touch. And if that person is excited about that offer, excited about that sale, they can go ahead and take action right from that informed delivery 2 to 6 hours before that mail is delivered. So lots of really cool innovation. I think they're continuing to build more innovation into that as they're getting more and more folks signing up for it. And they have a pretty decent sized adoption rate right now, which is exciting. I think about a quarter of Americans are signed up for informed delivery.
I didn't realize it had reached a quarter. I sort of thought that they hadn't done enough marketing of it. So hopefully we get up to closer to 50% to where grandma's got informed delivery as well.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Yeah, I say for anybody that doesn't have informed delivery, go sign up for it now. Like, you will like it. Like, it's not just I'm not just kind of like just saying it because we are, essentially great partners with the USPS, and we couldn't do what we did without them. But it's truly a really cool innovation that they took technology that they were using anyway to track letters and say, hey, how can we turn this into a benefit for the consumer? And I think they did a really good job with implementing that and making it more useful for both the consumer and marketers alike.
All right. Well, good job. And Postal Service don't usually end up in the same sentence. So it's really good to hear you say that.
I'm a big fan.
Well, one thing that is truly interesting, with regards to data and appending and the richness of data sets that are available within the direct mail universe. And at the same time, we have some of that same level of precision disappearing in the digital universe as a result of the erosion of third-party cookies and IDFA. but you still have pockets of highly targetable areas online that you can merge into the same data file you're using for mail.
That's
And
right.
CTV, for example, is still a household addressable, right? But you may not be able to do the same level of individual level targeting as you used to be able to, because mobile ad IDs are being deprecated. So it is interesting where, to some extent, direct mail will give you better precision than some digital, right? So if you've got a valuable enough offer, folks who aren't considering direct mail maybe should, take a look at it.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I mean, I think oftentimes, customer direct mail is always awesome. And I think what happens is too many times marketers will rely on their email list, their internal customer list, to send out all their promotions. And I think to a certain extent, that's a great idea. I mean, you're going to get higher open rates. You have affinity built into the customer. And if it's really good, like you said, they'll probably respond. The problem is that Google and Yahoo and anybody else you're using as your ISP is filtering all that stuff for you, and you're probably even filtering it yourself. You're saying, "I'll put that in my promotions folder," or "I don't want to hear from this brand name," or "I'm unsubscribing." And so, to me, if you already have a customer list, you should really be considered. Like, what I love about the Gap is they send out those postcards because they know that people are going to see them. There's 15, my wife maybe has, 50 emails a day coming to her from retailers, right? We have 3 kids. She's shopped at a lot of different stores. And so this is the way that it gets noticed is, okay, there's a back to school sale right now at Old Navy, which we know is going to be really great because it's going to be low cost, and everything my kids need is at Old Navy. So she'll see that, she'll use that. The problem is marketers will say, well, direct mail is too expensive, but for customers especially, it's really not. Your conversion rates and your response rates for customer lists, active customer lists, can be 10, 15, even 20% response rates, as long as you're pairing it with a good offer. And like all of a sudden, and or less, you've outgrown their product or service, meaning your kids are no longer babies, or you no longer, need apartment insurance, right? Because you bought a house. So, for me, I would say for marketers, just lean back into direct mail, especially on the customer list, because those have high response, high conversion, and you're going to get the ROI out of it.
Sure. When I have a conversation with someone like that who's a little bit concerned about, either re-engaging via direct mail, or maybe they haven't done direct mail yet, I'm like, all right, just do the top decile. Or the top quartile,
100%, right? Yes.
Because if it works there, then work your way down, and maybe ignore the
well, and do that on prospecting too. We do that on prospecting modeling lists all the time. Like, okay, based off intent, these 3 are always going to respond at 0.5%, right? Yeah. But if I'm selling widgets if I'm selling financial products that yield, upwards of 20, 30, 50, $100,000 in ROI over the course of a relationship of a customer, i.e. a large bank, right, that has 15 different products I can sell them, it's going to be worth dipping into to lower deciles to get them in early, and then eventually build that relationship over time. And so and sometimes we struggle with that even with here at the agency too. It's like, okay, well, yeah, we're response rate, conversion rate, great. But now let's look at like what was cart size, or what, what is the actual ROI on this customer, on this letter package, on this offer, versus, it's cheaper CAC using a postcard, but did they actually spend as much money with you? Yeah. Like, did they take that offer as serious when it was a postcard versus when it was a catalog? And so all that measurement goes into play, and ultimately building, scaling, and rolling out your direct mail program.
Yeah. The other thing I like about that is, you can have some leading indicators as well, right? So you may be able to, if you build your lead scoring system well enough, right, you don't have to wait 4 years to get the LTV back. Like, okay, now it's been 4 years. Let's tally everything up and figure out how much they were worth.
You're 100% right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have kind of a baked in, right? Yeah. So we know based off of the product this customer purchase based off of their demographic background,
Right.
that they're likely going to yield X amount in ROI. You don't have to wait 4 years to figure it out if you have the back end data to prove it.
Yeah, I mean, you validate it 4 years later and see how good your score was, right? But
Exactly.
you need to optimize your marketing now, right? Not wait the 4 years and then start to optimize. So
That's
it is really great how we can use data. And this is true in pure digital in the same way that it is, for direct mail, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
100%.
yeah.
And we always say, like, we're not saying don't use digital. Obviously, look, if I told you how much stuff I bought on Instagram, it would be embarrassing. But because it's a very well-trained algorithm, it knows exactly what I like, and it serves it up to me. And they've made it so much easier to purchase at this point. Whereas not even 3 years ago, it was actually really hard to purchase something through Instagram. So I appreciate that, but I would do the same thing if it was a very well targeted catalog in my mailbox. Right now I was looking at a kind of a tilt up, garage, metal garage shed, and I went to about 7 different websites this morning to start researching, and guaranteed if I get something in the mail that says I'm going to get 20% off if I go with this company, I'm likely going to give them a call. So retargeting is genius in that sense as well. So and oftentimes, as you know, too, just direct mail in general just has a little bit higher conversion rates and typically will yield a more valuable customer out of it. So that's why we love it.
Yeah, no, it's something about it being tactile, right? I mean, that's why I even prefer it to CTV in some instances, because they can, if it catches their attention, they can keep it around, right? I mean, within sort of the standard, TV kitchen shot, you'll have refrigerator magnets with it, glued on there, or the punch board where that postcard or that piece of mail was like saved for later, right?
Exactly.
So that's just something.
Post reminder right there. That's what you mean.
Right. Well, now they can QR code it and throw the mailer away.
Exactly.
But, then they're relying on actually reading the email, right? Which, of course, if it gets filtered, you probably need both the refrigerator magnet and the email. So
yeah. Well, I'll tell you, what's great about Post Reminder, not to give it another plug, but there's something so disruptive about receiving the text that customer requested. Okay, so they said they wanted the text, which is really great, right?
Yeah.
And when they're walking and they're doing their thing and they get that text and they look down, way more powerful than email or direct mail.
Oh,
it's
for
instant
sure.
and it's right there. Yeah, it's fantastic.
I mean, the trick is as long as there's affirmative consent and the person wanted the text, there's nothing that breaks through the clutter as much as the text. I mean,
that's the key.
It's orders of magnitude better than email for sure. Yeah.
And you nailed it. It's permission-based marketing. I want you to remind me about that sale. And that's what the whole ethos behind Post Reminder and Vote Reminder is like, hey, I raise my hand. I have intent. I want that. And what's funny is when we because we can do analysis on everything, the opt-out rate of the folks that receive the reminder messages is less than 0.002%. And that's because when they get them, they're not annoyed by them. They asked for them, they got them. We didn't give them 20 of them. We gave them exactly what we said we were going to give them, either 1 or 2, maybe 3 on some instances. And they get it and they take action. And that's why they don't opt out. So we're really proud of that.
Right. Well, I'm so glad we were able to catch up and brainstorm about like how digitized direct mail has gotten. And how it actually dovetails in really well with pure digital. So look forward to seeing what you guys have coming out in 2024.
That's excellent. Well, thanks so much. I appreciate being your guest. And if anybody wants to learn more about Gunderson Direct, just check out GundersonDirect.com. And if you want to learn more about Vote Reminder or Post Reminder, VoteReminder.com and PostReminder.com. And look forward to talking with you again. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mike. And of course, you can just find me on LinkedIn for all of my personalities.
Excellent.
Thanks, Mike. Take care.
All right, right on.
Kevin Lee's Power Marketing is available on all your favorite podcast networks. Kevin loves helping businesses excel at marketing. Having marketing challenges? Just like Santa in The Miracle on 34th Street, if Kevin can't help you, he'll know someone who can. Find him on LinkedIn, subscribe, or follow.